Welcome back, trainers, to Season 2 of our journey through the Pokemon world. We have conquered Kanto, and now we are making our way through the Johto region. Get your Pokeballs ready, trainers, because our adventure starts now. My name is Chris, and I'm playing Pokemon Crystal. I'm also joined by my two fellow co-hosts.
My name is Sean, and I'm playing Pokemon Gold.
And my name is Dustin, and I'm playing Pokemon Silver.
And we are known as the Trainer Trio. Do you guys want to get started on our Pokemon journey?
I'm excited. I have some new things planned this season.
Let's get started. Can't wait to win more battles.
So once you start your journey, your trainer is going to start in a new town called Newbark Town, where you're going to have some character introductions and you're going to get your starter Pokemon. From there, you're going to go west to Route 29 and maybe north to Route 46 before heading into Cherry Grove City. After a quick pit stop, you're going to go north again to Route 30 to Mr. Pokemon's house. Route 31, you have the option to explore a pretty dark cave there, but you can't see much. And then you'll hit Violet City, which has both the Bellsprout Tower and the first gym leader.
Should we start with our character introductions?
Yes, our character introductions and our trainer types. I want to save mine for last.
All right. My trainer type is going to give away which Pokemon I selected as my starter, but I decided that I'm going to be the Fire Breather trainer, and I named myself Goldie.
So you guys have failed to ask me the one important question. Am I a boy or am I a girl?
Oh, yes, because this is Crystal's the first game where you actually have the option to choose to be a boy or a girl. I completely forgot about that. I guess we should ask, are you a boy or a girl?
Let me tell you, Sean, I wasn't going to pass up the first opportunity ever to play as a female in Pokemon, so I am a girl.
I always knew you had it in you, Chris.
And so I will be going by the last trainer type, which just means a girl or young woman. And my name is Chrissy.
And Chrissy! Goldie and Chrissy!
Wow, they match.
That fits pretty well. I like it.
Moving into my character and trainer type, I felt I was a little basic last season. I didn't really name any of my Pokemon. My character's name was Yellow, my rival is Blue. Very basic. So this time, I was looking at all the trainer types, and I decided I want to be, a cool gentleman trainer. So what kind of character is this gentleman trainer? I really want to get into this backstory. Well, first off, I'm going to post a picture for you guys to see, and maybe you could describe to our audience members what kind of character this looks like.
He looks old.
Exactly. Sean got it dead on. He's kind of like an old gentleman trainer. While I was putting in the name, I was trying to see how many characters there were, and I kind of fumbled and just accepted it. And at that point, I just didn't want to restart the game. So we started off with gent, standing for gentleman, and then I could only put two more letters in, OO. So what that stands for is Gentleman Oliver Olivine. To kind of go back into this backstory, my character isn't really a boy or a girl in this case. He's an old man, and he was born in the city of Olivine. Born into this generational family who's owned the city, and by the time he came of age, he also became the mayor of the city and has spent a couple decades as the mayor. Finally, after seeing all these trainers come in and out of this port town, he decided maybe I want to become one of those trainers too, and that is where my character is starting off. I do have a description for the gentleman type trainer that I'll try my best to follow. Basically, a gentleman type trainer, they are older men in dapper suits. They generally use Pokemon based on pets, such as Growlithe or Chatot. So I'm going to do my best to pick a Pokemon team that you could basically have as a pet.
I think we should call you Novelist Dustin or something like that. You created a good story there.
I know. Me and Chris just named our people Chrissy and Goldie.
So I want to bring a new flair to this season, really expand the boundaries of what we can do.
I like it. I guess without further ado, we all end up in Newbark Town. We have names, we have trainer types. So before anyone goes into the Pokemon lab, did anyone do any exploration in Newbark Town?
I just want to mention, at the very beginning, this is also the first game that Chris mentioned there's a clock time system. And when I first started playing, I input the time, which when I started was 5:15 p.m. And the very first thing they say is, yikes, I overslept. I was just thinking wow, oversleeping until 5 in the afternoon. I can't even imagine that anymore.
Need your beauty sleep at that age.
I did a little bit of exploring around our room. I noticed one thing. I went to the PC and tried to get the potion until I realized Generation 2 doesn't give you a potion in the PC. I don't know what's the deal with that. And then I listened to the radio in our room, and it has almost like a little podcast or a little radio segment with Professor Oak. And it was really cute because it started playing the song from Professor Oak's lab. And it really made me nostalgic, even though we just finished Gen 1. And then there is a TV downstairs, and they aren't watching Stand By Me this time. They're watching something else. It has some description, but it was nothing that I could pick up on, unfortunately. That's what I noticed inside the house.
And I noticed one more thing in the kitchen where your mom is making a famous Cinnabar volcano burger. So it's cool to get a little hint from the last region just right off the bat.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I took a note of that too. And then on my notes, I just wrote, why isn't there a Pokemon themed restaurant? Because there really should be. Maybe there is, and I just don't know about it.
We'll have to see in the later generations. I don't think in this one, though.
Well, I meant like in real life.
You know, there has to be one in Japan. They have like a real life Pokemon Center. I would really love to go there sometime.
One of these days.
I just love how Gen 2 has already had 2 references to Gen 1. Like, they already know they have to play on nostalgia.
And then outside, just within the starting town of New Bark, I did notice, talking to one of the people, you figure out that Pikachu is an evolved Pokemon. So this is your first experience finding that out. Previously, you only have Pikachu and Raichu, and then now to see like, oh, there's like another Pokemon in this line must have been so shocking at the time.
Yeah, which that goes into some of the controversy that surrounds Gen 2 is the introduction of all these baby Pokemon. But personally, I've always been a fan of baby Pokemon. Even, I'm the battler, so that's very surprising that I would say that. But I don't know, I like a lot of the designs for the baby Pokemon that we get. And I think it's cool to think of adding an extra step on the evolutionary line that doesn't necessarily make the Pokemon stronger, but also I think just makes them more unique by adding those pre-evolutions.
Yeah, I thought it was really good that they mentioned that because I'm sure people who played through the entire first generation front to back, they know that Pikachu is not an evolved Pokemon. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, something has changed.
It just tells you, throw out all the knowledge you know about Pokemon. This is a new game, new generation. Let's move into the reason we're here, to gather our Pokemon in Professor Elm's lab. Before you go in there, though, I noticed that there's someone outside looking through the window and went to try and talk to them, and they pushed me out of the way. So I thought that was very rude. Did you guys talk to this mysterious figure?
I did.
Me too.
Very rude.
So you do go inside Professor Elm's lab. And one other note I have before getting the Pokemon is that he knows someone who goes by the name Mr. Pokemon. Thought that was very interesting. I don't know if there's anyone in the real world that goes by Mr. Animal.
That you know of.
That I know of. And he's not even like a professor too, so he probably didn't change his name to that.
I noticed 2 things in Elm's lab. He has a computer and there's a document on there that says Pokemon. Where do they come from? Where are they going? Why has no one ever witnessed a Pokemon's birth? And I thought that was really strange. I'm like, if you've been dedicating your whole life to Pokemon and you don't know these 3 basic questions, I think you're not the best Pokemon professor.
Well then, Chris, have you ever witnessed the Pokemon birth?
I've seen 1,000 eggs hatch before. It's not that hard.
You're jumping through time because back then, Generation 1, they had no eggs.
He should know that. He's been living in Generation 2. And also, one thing I noted is they made Elm a lot younger, and they mentioned that he has a family. So I thought that was probably pretty deliberate to make him quite different than Professor Oak.
So now we are all getting our starter Pokemon. And as you guys already know, we had our fights from the last generation determine who gets to pick which Pokemon first. And as I said earlier, I think everyone here kind of has an idea which Pokemon I picked. I was the winner of our Gen 1 round robin battles. And so the Pokemon I picked is also my favorite of all time, Cyndaquil. And it was a boy, I believe. And I always been naming it this forever. I named it Cinder, it starts out with like the Cinda, how that spelling goes, and then just instead of Cyndaquil. And so I have Cinder the Cyndaquil, who is, like I said, my favorite Pokemon of all time.
Well, good thing you won the tournament last time. Otherwise, I would have ruined your hopes and dreams.
Well, we're not living in that universe.
This is the best timeline. Don't get me wrong.
Not the darkest timeline.
No.
And talking about that, I think we should introduce a new rule for the next season where you can't have the same type of starter Pokemon back to back. So like in that case, you wouldn't be able to do Charmander and Cyndaquil back to back since they're both fire type, just to push our boundaries. What do you guys think?
I think if you win all the round robins, you should be able to choose whichever starter you want.
Okay, I guess. We'll see how it goes then.
We'll keep that open for debate. We'll have to see how that goes.
You know, me and Chris are just trying to reach for something here. Otherwise, I'll go second since I did get second in our Johto Battles last season. So I had another choice to choose Totodile. And the reason I chose him was because I really like water Pokemon, and Totodile does have a very cool sprite, just blue and red. And I named him Admiral Tot, so I did give him a name.
You named your Pokemon. I thought we were going to have to wait till like the end of the run to hear you name a Pokemon.
This is a new beginning, a new trainer. Gentleman Oliver Olivine has to name all his Pokemon. All of the ones that he's going to use, because he is from a coastal town, so that's why he's got to name that lead Pokemon the Admiral.
This is so exciting. I like this new Dustin.
I know. I've never seen this Dustin before.
I guess I can go next since I got last place in the Johto Battles. I got stuck with Chikorita, but that's okay because I nicknamed her Chica. Not too original, but as you can see, a little theme here. Chica is a female, which I believe starter Pokemon have a 1 in 8 chance, either 1 in 8 or 1 in 7 of being female. They do that on purpose so that it makes it a little harder to breed them since you need both a male and a female. And that's going to be my theme, is I'm going to try and have a female-centric team if I can, since I am a female, and this is the first generation to allow genders. We'll see if I can keep that up.
I really like that challenge. So far, me and Chris have something we have to keep too, where my character really has to have pet-style Pokemon. Chris is all females. Sean, do you have any limits?
No limits. All gas, no brakes. Route 29. Now with our Pokemon, we are given the task with Professor Elm to go check on his friend, Mr. Pokemon, because there's something he wants us to see. We do not know it yet. So we go out west to Route 29. And I asked this question last time, so I'm going to ask it again. Do you guys know what your first Pokemon encounter was of this generation?
I do. So I did record that, which was a Sentret. And I guess I was still able to encounter that around 5:15, 5:30-ish, which I know Sentret in my game can only be seen in the daytime or in the afternoon. But the sad part was that you still don't have Pokeballs yet, so I couldn't capture it. I was very disappointed there.
Chris, what was your first encounter, if you wrote that down?
My first encounter was Pidgey. It was not that exciting.
I also had the first encounter of a Sentret, which is pretty cool to start out seeing the new Pokemon. So I have a quick story. As I was going through Route 29, I encountered a Sentret and I take it down. And then the next Pokemon I encounter was a Rattata. And I was trying to take it down, and that's when I realized that Cyndaquil starting out is kind of weak because I was having difficulty dealing damage to the Rattata. And then it got me down to the yellow HP. And then I realized my Cyndaquil ate a berry. I didn't even realize our Pokemon came holding berries. And so it ate the berry. It got some of its health back. And then the Rattata hit me with a critical hit, and I whited out.
Already?
Oh, what?
Yes.
The Pokemon Master from last season.
The second Pokemon I encountered whited me out, which I did not white out the entire time the last game.
Well, you did white out during one of the legendary encounters.
Oh, wait, you're right. I did against Moltres. And then I guess if you count all the times I was going up against Elite Four where I intentionally whited out.
That's crazy, though. So early on.
I was very disappointed in myself.
I can go over the wild Pokemon encounters real quickly. I mentioned that these games have a morning, day, and night cycle. I should clarify that morning is between 4 a.m. and 10 a.m., day is between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m., and night is between 6 p.m. and 4 a.m. And so noting that, in Gold, Silver, and Crystal, you can find a Pidgey during the morning or day. In Gold and Silver, you have a 5% chance of finding a Rattata in the morning or day, and then a 15% chance at night. In Crystal, it's similar, except it's a 45% chance at night. You can find Sentret, 40% chance in the day and morning in all three games. Hoothoot in Gold and Silver, which you can only find at nighttime at 85%. In Crystal, that's 55%. And then Pokemon Crystal has one exclusive to this route. There is a 5% chance to find a Hoppip in the morning or day.
Chris, did you ever encounter any Hoppips in this route?
I went searching for a Hoppip, and you better believe I got it.
Was it female?
Hoppip is... Let me check. Yes. Well, let's set the record straight. I'm not going to capture only female Pokemon. I'm just going to use female Pokemon on my teams. This was a female, and I named Hoppip Beer, like hops that get added to beer. Not that creative. Jumping the gun a little bit. I know we didn't have Pokeballs yet, but just wanted to say that I did catch that Hoppip.
All right. Did everyone just go to Cherry Grove City next?
I guess just to talk about trying to get to Cherry Grove City, I did get lost in this very first area because I've never played these games before, so I actually had no idea where I was going. There was a few battles just with all the wild Pokemon, and it probably took me a good 20 minutes to get out of this area. So that was Noob Gentleman Oliver Olivine going through a new part. He's only been in Olivine City.
One more note I got, and I wanted to ask you guys. I noticed when I was going between cities and routes that the route name pops up when you change areas. Is that the same in your guys' game as well?
No, it is not.
So that might be a Crystal exclusive. It tells me when I go into Route 29 that I've entered Route 29. It's a very helpful quality of life improvement.
I can't wait till I get that in Gen 3, I guess. So I remember you go to Cherry Grove City, the old man shows you around the city, which it's funny because in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, he gives you the running shoes. And so when I got to this point, I was like, oh, is this the first generation they introduced running shoes? No, it is not. You do not get running shoes. Oh, I guess I should say we get in this game something called the Pokegear. The Pokegear has a lot of functions in this game. We will get more of them as we play through, but he basically gives you the map. What is it called? I guess the map section.
You do receive a map card. I also want to point out his name is Guy Gent. So he's also a friend of Gent 00. That's my character. So we're both Gents just walking around.
Dustin instantly befriended him.
I gotta say, I don't like this theme in Pokemon where the second town is pretty useless. I know they've done this in multiple areas, but what's the point of Cherry Grove City? It doesn't offer that much.
And the first thing I did was went to the Pokemart, and all of the Pokeballs are sold out. So that was very disappointing.
So Cherry Grove City, really nothing to do there. It's just, I guess, to heal up your Pokemon before you go up north to Route 30, which even at this point, there's more grass. I'm sure Chris will go into the encounters that we could get there, but you really can't progress forward much because you see two trainers having a Pokemon battle at one section that blocks off the route to continue upwards. And so it forces us to go to a house, which we find out to be Mr. Pokemon's house. I guess before I go into that, is there anything you guys want to add about this route at this point in time?
My only comment here was you already mentioned how your star Pokemon is already holding a berry, and mine was too. And on the way up, you do encounter like a berry tree. I think this might have been in the previous route, but also here, there's a house where a man also gives you a berry. So they're really trying to tell you like, hey, there are berries in this game, and your Pokemon can hold them and use them.
Yeah, I got the PSN Cure Berry, which I was like, come on, can we maybe get a little bit more creative names? You don't have to tell me in the name that it cures poison.
That's very funny, because eventually these berries get better names, but nope, not today. The first berries that our Pokemon hold is just called a berry. That's it.
Right. Berry, Poison Cure Berry. Yeah, not the most creative names.
Yeah. So we go Route 30, we go to Mr. Pokemon's house, and that's where we meet the individual who goes by Mr. Pokemon. And wouldn't you know, there's Professor Oak inside the house as well. Who would have thought? And so with Professor Oak there, he comments on how rare your Pokemon is, and he gives you a Pokédex because he sees potential in you, which is pretty cool how in this generation 2, Professor Oak is still the one who gives you the Pokédex. So it very much feels like it's still his thing because, in the later generations, he's not the one to give you the Pokedex.
It was good to catch up with Professor Oak because, as you guys would know, the mayor of Olivine City has some connections to Kanto, and maybe we'll find out later what kind of connections those are.
Interesting. Yeah, so there's not much else. You talk to Professor Oak, you get your Pokedex, you get an egg from Mr. Pokemon, which is very rare, or I guess very strange in these times. Not much to do with Mr. Pokemon's house. We leave, and then that's when we find out about another function of the Pokegear, is we get a phone call from Professor Elm, who he seems very distressed, but he won't go into details of what's happened, but he just tells you need to come back right away, which I always thought was interesting because I'm under the assumption that we just met this guy and then something happens and you're the one he calls, not his family that he mentions, but this kid he just met probably a couple hours ago.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that. Why are we the ones to go save his butt?
We do have a piece of his property now, which is the starter Pokemon.
So then we go back down the same route we came. And when we reach Cherry Grove City, about to go back to Route 29, we run into that same individual who was very rude and pushed us out of the way when we tried to talk to him back in New Barktown. And this is when we find out that this person stole one of Professor Elm's Pokemon, and he challenges you to a Pokemon battle. And this is our first rival encounter. In Gen 1, Rage was easily one of the worst moves. And I guess the reason why it's so bad in Gen 1 is because your Pokemon gets locked into using Rage. When you use it once, you do get a buff to your attack stat when you get damaged, but it's not that impressive because you're locked into Rage. In this generation, this is the strongest when Rage is. I don't remember off the top of my head what the base power is, but this is the highest base power it starts off with. And then you also do not get locked in to having to use Rage when you use it. So this is the strongest that Rage will ever be.
Wow, I definitely have to start using it now.
There's a debate whether if Cyndaquil or Totodile is the best starter in this generation. And a lot of people tend to go Totodile because of that early game Rage is so much more powerful than any early game you get with Cyndaquil. And the consensus is that Chikorita is the least. So sorry, Chris.
Hey, they gave me easy mode. They gave me a 55 power move with same type attack bonus at level 8. So I'll take it right now.
And I guess just to comment on that too, I mean, one reason why I didn't use Rage is because still in this generation too, you can't really see what your Pokemon abilities do while you're in battle. Are you able to check it in the summary page?
You can now.
Okay. I have not looked at that yet.
Yeah, so we all end up being our rivals. We go back to New Barktown, and that's when we talk to the police officer who wants to know the name of the individual that we just had battled. So, what did everyone name their rival?
I want to start with Dustin here. He has some creative names for everyone.
Well, at the time, gentleman Oliver Olivine didn't quite recognize him, but now it's coming back to him. He actually saw that face before. His name was Sire Vivi, which stands for Vincent Vermilion of Vermilion City. He's actually one of the other mayors in Kanto. And their city was also a port city, and they were stealing some of our business. So, gentleman Oliver Olivine did not like that.
Wow, getting political in here.
That's crazy. There's no mares in my Pokemon game.
You're playing the wrong Pokemon game.
Okay, so the name of my new rival is Gruden. Named after John Gruden for that weird red hair, the Oakland Raiders and Tampa Bay Buccaneers coach, who is quite disgraced and a spoiled loser. So that is Gruden, my rival.
Oh, well. Last time around, I named my rival Chris because I thought Chris would be my truest rival. Obviously, we're all wrong there. He came up in last in the Pokemon Battles. So this time around, since Dustin was the closest to my rival, I named this rival Dusty.
Ooh, keeping the ease.
Goldie and Dusty.
I would say Chris was just misunderstood. Dusty's kind of a jerk.
He is kind of a jerk.
He is trying to win this battle, what we're now calling the Johto Battles.
I'm really curious to see how my experience goes with this rival, because in Generation 1, I thought that was the perfect rival. He's your age. You meet him from the very beginning. He's not just a huge jerk. He's rude and everything, but he's really just young and immature. This guy is actually a jerk, so I want to see if I like that approach better.
It just has to be from those folks in Vermilion City. They're all jerks.
Darn Vermilion.
Yeah, so then we name our rivals, and now this is when the adventure really starts, because we get the option to learn how to catch a Pokemon, which someone could correct me if I'm wrong, but it's so cool that in this generation you have the option to skip how to catch a Pokemon, because Pokemon Company still thinks that everyone who's playing this game played the first game. You will find in a lot of the other future generations we do not have the option to skip this tutorial. We have to learn how to catch a Pokemon. And so I just thought it was so cool that we could skip learning how to catch a Pokemon, which of course I did. I'm the Pokemon Master. Like, come on now. I thought it was very cool.
I like that too. Honestly, I don't understand why the new games don't do that. We've all played Pokemon before, and it's not that hard of a mechanic to learn.
I think Sean could have used it, though, just because how many Pokemon did you capture in the last game?
Not a lot.
Oh, that's a bit of a burn. I like that. So the fire breather, is that you?
Well, you know what, Dustin? How many battles did you win? I don't think it's very much.
Hey, at least I got a second.
Wait, what?
Well, tensions are high in the Trainers Trio podcast, and we haven't even done the first battle yet. But yeah, so after that, we can now catch Pokemon. And so Chris already mentioned you caught the Hoppip. Are there any Pokemon that you guys caught Route 29?
So before we get in there, there's just one other thing, which is, did you guys talk to your mom before leaving? Because she does ask if you want to save your money. And how did you guys answer?
I said yes, because I don't know how much in this generation, but I know specifically in Heart Gold that if your mom saves money for you, she could buy items for you. And a lot of the items she buys for you are items that you can't get any other way. And so, again, I don't know how much that is in Gen 2, but I figured you could still get some neat items by letting her handle your money.
I didn't know that, and I'm definitely going to look that up, because if that's the case, I'm going to change my answer. I said no. I want to keep my own money. I don't want my mom to hold on to it. I want to spend my own cash, so definitely not.
I'm the same case here. I did not want my mom taking my money. I need to use all of that to buy as many Pokeballs as possible.
I mean, again, I don't know how much in Gen 2, how many unique items you get, but she will buy you items along the way that you could pick up. I think in Gen 2 is actually in the Pokemon Center, but in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, it's in the Pokemon Marts.
And then afterwards, so you do get the Pokeballs from Professor Elm's assistant, and then you move and you can capture your first Pokemon, which in my case, my first Pokemon I caught was a Hoothoot. And we're going to move into what we're going to introduce a new segment, Pokedex Highlight. The Pokedex entry for Pokemon Silver of Hoothoot is it has a perfect sense of time. Whatever happened, it keeps its rhythm by precisely tilting its head in time. So I guess it just keeps track of time just by constantly moving its head.
Very interesting.
How about you guys? Which first Pokemon did you capture?
My first Pokemon I captured, again, was the same as my first encounter. It was a Pidgey, and I named him Poopy.
Starting off strong.
I encountered another Rattata, and I was very mad that one whited me out. So I ended up catching it, and I named it Johnny.
Johnny?
Johnny.
Why?
Why not, Chris? He looked like a Johnny.
Thought maybe like reference Johnny Knoxville. Something. No, okay. So I got inspired by Dustin last generation and really felt like I wanted to capture a few more Pokemon. So I did go ahead and captured the rest of them in this route, including a Rattata, which I named Tatas 2 after the last one I had in Kanto. I caught a Sentret, no nickname there. And I caught a Hoothoot and named her Hootie.
So I'll just say I didn't catch a Hoothoot at this route, but I do eventually catch a Hoothoot, and I named it Hootie Hoot.
We're so original.
I did not name my Hoothoot because I was not going to use a Hoothoot. I was guessing due to our one rule that one of you guys were probably going to use Hoothoot in their party, so I decided not to use it.
Guess you're just going to have to wait and find out.
Dustin, did you catch every single Pokemon in that route, in Route 29?
I tried. I don't actually have my notes there of which Pokemon I captured, so we'll see how it goes.
Now I'm going to ask, did anyone go up north to Route 46?
Yes, I did.
Same here.
What notes do you guys have up there?
I basically noted that there's a couple extra Pokemon, but am I missing something? It sounds like you're alluding to something.
I'm not alluding to anything. It's just interesting because Route 46, there's not much you could do up there at this point in time. It does come back and play much later in the game. I don't know, it's just interesting to go up there and be like, oh, I wonder what's up here. And you see it and it's basically nothing.
So then I'll add that in Route 46, in this section that you can go right now, there are a couple new encounters. In the morning and day, you can find a Spearow. In Pokemon Gold and Silver only, you can find a Jigglypuff at a 5% encounter rate. In Gold and Silver and Crystal, you can find a Geodude. And in Crystal only, in the morning, there's a 5% chance to find a Phanpy.
Oh, Phanpy.
That leads me to another mechanic called Fleeing, which I don't know if you guys have gotten there yet. Probably not. So in Generation 2, there are a couple Pokemon outside of the roaming legendary beasts that can just escape from battle. It'll just say that the Pokemon fled, or it says the Pokemon flees, or something like that. And none of the Pokemon that you can encounter yet can do that in Gold and Silver, but some early Pokemon in Pokemon Crystal that can do that are Teddiursa and Phanpy, which have a 50% chance of fleeing on any turn. You better bet at a 5% encounter rate. I was getting so nervous of trying to catch these guys. Luckily, I caught Phanpy a little later, and I had another Pokemon on my team that was able to put it to sleep and then catch it. So I also got a Phanpy, and I named Phanpy Fanny.
Oh,
Hey.
man. That was a really cool capture, though.
It is.
There's only a handful of Pokemon. I'm not going to list them off now. I'll send you guys the list, but you can look out for the Pokemon that can flee on any turn.
I didn't even know that. That's crazy. Yeah, so it sounds like not much happened in Route 46. And then just moving on back to Route 30. Now we can move past the two trainers because their Pokemon battle seems to end. But that's when we get in our first Pokemon battle. That's not our rival. Do you guys have any other notes to go over? Because I really don't have much.
I think it's just heading into Route 31 where I did notice there was a lot of people who are just out there and they aren't even trainers. And I thought that was very awkward compared to, like, I'm just used to, if you see anyone out there in the wild, they're going to battle you.
Interesting. Route 30 and 31, I don't really have many notes.
There's a couple new encounters. I'll race through this because I feel like I've mentioned a lot of new ones. You can find Caterpie, Metapod, Weedle, Kakuna, Zubat, Poliwag exclusive to Crystal, Ladybug, and Spinarak. Those are all the new Pokemon that you can find depending on different games that you're playing in Route 30. So we've already been introduced to, I think, 10 different species of Pokemon, whereas in Kanto, the first two, you're going to find 3 different species. There's not much going on.
More diversity here. Did anyone go into the dark cave that's in Route 31? Because I went in the dark cave and I always remembered never knowing where to find Flash in this game, which is really funny. We'll get to that point. But when I was young, I think this is where I got lost. When I was borrowing my friend's gold for the weekend, I got lost in dark cave, and that's when I gave it back to him, just very much not enjoying the game. I caught a Zubat. I named him Drac for Dracula. I was very debating if I wanted to actually use him or not, because I know he does get a new evolution down the line, and I do think Crobat's a pretty cool Pokemon, But I also know in this first iteration of friendship that it is much harder to get Pokemon friendship than it'll ever be in future generations. So I didn't know if I wanted to dedicate that time to them.
I also captured a Zubat, but didn't really add it to my party. One other note I did take of the Dark Cave is that, like, you don't have Flash right now, but you do see in the distance that there's a Pokeball. I guess everything is dark except for that Pokeball. So I was thinking, all right, let's try and brute force it. So I just kept going up, and finally I got to a point where I moved a little bit higher. And I was like, yes, I'm getting close. And then I just can't move forward anymore. So I tried to move back, and I was not moving. So I got scared for a little bit that I was going to be trapped in there forever. But finally, after some time, I made my way back to the exit.
Good to know you didn't soft lock your game. I also went inside. There is 2 new encounters for Crystal, 1 for Gold and Silver. Dunsparce is in the cave at a 1% chance. So I imagine no one found Dunsparce. And Teddy Ursa in Crystal has a 5% chance of being found in the morning. Of course, because I'm trying to emulate Dustin here, I caught Teddy Ursa. This is one of the Pokemon I mentioned has a 50% chance of fleeing, so this was quite stressful, but caught Teddy Ursa. It is unfortunately a male, so I don't know if I can add him to my team.
Oh, no.
So I don't know. Maybe I'll go back and catch another, but for now, this Teddy Ursa is named Teddy. And also, side note, I did want to catch that Dunsparce really badly, so I think I went through maybe 70 random encounters and couldn't find one. So I gave up for now, but I also found out that there is other things that can happen in the game that can increase your chance of finding Dunsparce, which can only be found in the Dark Cave, just to know.
We'll see who captures Dunsparce first, Chris.
It's not going to be me. I'll just throw that out there.
Sean's going to find one in the wild. It'll be shiny, and he'll just say, I don't want it.
See, now you're making me think, what if you find a shiny Teddy Ursa and it runs away? That is heartbreaking.
Very unlikely, though, I want to say, because I have probably only caught 1 shiny Pokemon in my life. So we'll see how that goes.
I can't wait till one of us finds a shiny Pokemon. Even if it's Gen 4 or 5 or 6, I can't wait. It'll happen.
Yeah, if I catch a shiny, it's going in my party. I don't care if it's a Magikarp, it's going in my party. And now we all eventually get to Violet City. One of the things I noticed in Violet City is when you go into Pokemon Center, they talk about the whole Team Rocket incident from the first game, which I think is really cool. How, they've been mentions of the first game, just like the routes and areas there, but just getting an actual reference to what happened in the game is just super cool to me.
And you actually also get a time frame, because they do mention it was 3 years ago when justice prevailed and a young kid broke them up. So I thought that was really cool to have a timeline of when all of this is happening.
I noted that as well. That's pretty cool that they actually gave an actual timeline for that. It really connects the first 2 generations together, and you can really tell that Gen 2 really is a sequel to Gen 1.
This is also the case where you can trade Pokemon. So you can trade a Bellsprout for an Onyx in Pokemon Silver, which I did do.
I also did that trade.
Me too.
Everyone has an Onyx on their team.
Onyx named Rocky.
Yeah, and not change its name.
And just to mention, Onyx is normally a pretty bad Pokemon. However, it was given a pretty good evolution in Generation 2. You just have to wait a while till that's even accessible. I don't think that's enough to convince you guys to add it to your team.
I did thought that was interesting because they are really trying to push all the new mechanics on you early on. Like, you get the egg, you get berries, and now they're giving you like Onyx. And even though you don't know now, but that's also a way that you can realize, oh, some of these older Pokemon now have new evolutions.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite features, is giving old Pokemon new evolutions, which I know the Pokemon Company doesn't do that with every generation, but the ones that they do it with, it's just, awesome that you give some more love to the old original ones.
I think there's really only one other thing to do in this town except the gym, which is to go to Sprout Tower. I went there and I was actually kind of surprised that there's a whole area dedicated just to Bellsprout at the beginning, and it's not even really that interesting. It's just a bunch of trainers with Bellsprouts and a bunch of Bellsprout statues. You can find 3 Pokemon there. You can find Rattatas in the morning and day, and Ghastlies at night, which I believe I did catch a Ghastly and named it. Oh, I named my Ghastly Gas Space Lee, Lee.
Very creative names.
I caught one too. I named it Shadow.
The hedgehog?
No, the Ghastly.
Well, I did take a couple notes in this tower. I did capture Ghastly too. It was cool because there's an animation here where like the center of the tower is kind of moving back and forth. And the reason being is because there's a lot of trainers upstairs fighting. I noticed all of the trainers in here have Bellsprouts, which at the time was kind of difficult. This was a difficult portion for me because they all have like a grass type move. So I can't really use Totodile. And then if I want to train in the tower, I was training at nighttime and encountering a lot of Ghastlies. And like at the time, most of my Pokemon only knew normal type moves. So I had to somehow get my Totodile to level up to get Water Gun. So in this tower, I was mainly using the Zubat that I caught earlier, and I also did capture a Jigglypuff. The only issue with Jigglypuff is that it only knows one move, Sing. So I would literally like throw out Jigglypuff first to put the Bellsprout to sleep, and then Zubat would come out, and the only move it knew was Leech Life. So I was using such ineffective moves just to move up through the tower. How did you guys handle it?
I mean, the tower for me, I really have like no notes. So even during all this time, my Cyndaquil still didn't learn Ember. Also at this time, I was using a lot of the different Pokemon I was capturing because I really was trying to keep my Pokemon's levels down because I didn't want to level past the first gym leader. But I eventually stopped doing that because it's not my style to use a bunch of Pokemon I don't like. And so I was doing that for a while until I decided, you know what? I know the first gym leader has 2 Pokemon. I'm going to pick my 2 favorite and then go from there. And I'll tell you guys what those 2 are at a later time when we get to that point. But I, again, had almost no notes for the Bellsprout Tower.
Yeah, same. I was training 3 Pokemon in specific. I catching other ones and they may go in and out. And I have to see if maybe one of these is a duplicate from one of you guys. But obviously I have Chikorita. I decided to put on my team the Poliwag that I could find because that's also a Crystal exclusive. No one else can have that right now, so that's good. And then I was using Hootie, the Hoothoot, just for a bit, which between all of those guys and Chica being, I think, level 10 at that point, I think I was accidentally leveling past the first gym leader, but I was able to make it through because most of these Pokemon were level 3.
I would like to mention, we didn't make it a rule to level your Pokemon up to the gym leader, but just try not over level too much past it, which it was difficult for me in this section because once when Totodile learned Water Gun, he was like the only Pokemon I used for a large portion of this. I still can't really decide on what my second Pokemon would be throughout most of this playthrough because I am trying to look for specific pet style Pokemon for Oliver. Otherwise, once when you do go to the top of the tower, you do encounter your rival again. He beats the Elder and he gets an HM, and I guess the Elder mentions how Pokemon shouldn't be used as tools of war, which is quite interesting because in the previous generation, Lieutenant Surge mentioned that Pokemon were used in this huge war. Thought that was quite interesting. And then your rival actually uses an escape rope to run away.
A nice little tutorial nod there as well, because you'll be able to pick up an escape rope just to the side of the Elder when you're done with that battle as well.
And you do end up buying the Elder. For me, he was pretty easy. And he does give you the HM Flash. And behind him, there's a painting. And I want to just see what would happen if you click on it. It does say that it's a powerful painting of a Bellsprout, which that was very funny how like there's this whole tower dedicated to this like generally very weak Pokemon. Why can't it be a Victory Bell or something?
I will mention just for you two, because I don't know if you guys know about this, but in Gen 2, evolution stones are locked until you go to Kanto. So if any of you decided you wanted to catch a Bellsprout and add it to your party, just know it's not going to be able to go all the way to a Weeping Bell. And any other stone evolutions, just keep that in the back of your head.
And I would like to mention that I did already use Victory Bell, and hopefully our goal is not to repeat the same Pokemon that we used in our Kanto battles, so I can't use a Bellsprout.
Without further ado, it's time to try and get our first gym badge. Might as well share the 2 Pokemon that we decided to go into the gyms with.
I will start. So I did end up going back into one of the earlier routes during the day to capture a Sentret because my Pokemon trainer, gentleman Oliver Olivine, needs a pet. So I named my Centret Commodore S because I'm going to take Centret to then. We'll see how it goes.
Are you really?
Wow.
We will see. So Centret and Totodile are my 2 Pokemon I'm taking into this gym.
And my 2 Pokemon that I'm taking into the gym are Hoothoot, and my Poliwag, which I don't know if I mentioned, is named Wagyu. I took those 2 and I couldn't take my starter in because it's already weak to the first gym.
Yeah, you're going to have to do that for probably the second gym too. I obviously had Cyndaquil, and I know Chris made this comment earlier, but I'm going to do it. I had the Onix on my team, and I want to try and get the Steelix because I know he sucks as an Onix, but I think Steelix is just such a cool design that I want to try to do it this time around.
John, you're making this difficult on us. We have to trade that Pokemon. That means we need to physically be together.
I know, which we'll find out. It gets to the point where that's not going to happen, then it's not going to happen.
We will make it happen. I don't care if I have to drive 8 hours to visit.
Chris, do you have the trading cable that we could use?
I just ordered it, actually, so it should be coming in shortly. Anyone who's interested, we are all going to be getting together in a few weeks here, so hopefully we can do some trading.
I guess more to the audience, as we already said, we're now all on physical game copies. And so we decided, you know what, let's try and use some trade evolutions this time around because especially in Gen 2, I love some of these trade evolutions. And it just makes me so sad that they're locked behind a trade, which is in our situation, very hard to do. Those are all our Pokemon. And now how did the gym go for everyone?
Just getting the layout of the gym inside, I just took a note that there's like stone tiles and darkness, and there just looked like there's a large drop on either side. So I was quite scared in this gym. Mr. Olivine, he's not used to heights like this. He's just used to his oceanside town. So it took some getting used to. And of course, after the very first trainer, my second command, Commodore S, got KO'd. So it was a difficult gym for me, trying to get Commodore S to get through this gym. I had to go back outside and train a little bit more.
It's so funny that we mentioned this gym. I mean, it's a level 7 Pidgey and a level 9 Pidgeotto. And I looked at that and said, oh my gosh, this generation is such a joke. And then that Pidgeotto took me out. Like, I guess because it's an evolved Pokemon, it was a lot stronger than I was expecting. Plus, same type attack bonus for both Tackle and Gust. And then Mud Slap, which lowers your accuracy. So yeah, I lost initially and had to use a Hypnosis strat to go through this gym. I am never going to underestimate the first gym in a Pokemon game ever again.
I also had difficulty because I didn't know that both Pidgey and Pidgeot knew Mud Slap, which is super effective against both of my Pokemon. And so going in, I've already been complaining about Cyndaquil, still doesn't know Ember. And so I was going in and I was like, okay, I'm going to just use Leer and Smokescreen as much as I can and Tackle. And I'm pretty sure the Pidgey ended up taking down my Cyndaquil. And so I had to send out my Onix that only knows Tackle and Arden. And I was tackling through my way and I barely won. I had 5 HP left with Onix when I beat his Pidgeot. I was so mad because why does both of these Pokemon know Mud Slap? Like, it's very cool that they give them the coverage, but no, I don't like it. And then the TM we get is Mud Slap. Why do we get Mud Slap and not Gust or any flying type move? It makes no sense.
When you do defeat him, he does say my dad's cherished bird Pokemon. So I don't know if you guys caught it earlier in the city, but they do mention that Falkner actually inherited this gym from his father. So I thought it was just another cool like lore building here. But you do also get the ability to use Flash at this point. So if you found it earlier, you weren't able to use it somehow. And it also does raise the attack power of Pokemon when you get this badge, what badge is this?
The Zephyr Badge.
Otherwise, I think that is it. One last note before we move into the Pokestats, which is you do get a call from Professor Elm after you leave the gym. And apparently there's a discovery about the egg, so talk to the assistant in Violet City, which we will get to next episode. Pokestats, our favorite segment of this podcast. So let's start off with the total time, and Pokédex.
I'm going to request to go last on this one. I want you guys to go first.
I will go first. So I had a playtime of 4 hours and 30 minutes. I am playing quite a lot this generation, it seems. And my Pokédex total is 14.
Wow. All right. So I played a total of 3 hours and 2 minutes, and I have a Pokédex total of 7, half of Dustin's.
Okay, I don't feel as bad. My total time was 4 hours and 12 minutes, actually just a bit below Dustin. And my Pokédex number was 18, which is the second most you can get in Pokemon Crystal. The only one I did not catch was that 1% Dunsparce.
Wow, good job, Chris. You're really taking the reins early on. But, this is just the first gym, Chris.
I think you've reignited Dustin's Pokemon hunting passion.
I still spent the most amount of time here, and I wasn't even focused on capturing all the Pokemon. But I want to say my playtime would have probably been even longer in the previous generation. But since I was on my phone, I could just close the app and I'll stop counting the time. Where now, if I'm taking notes, I have to set the game to the side, take the notes, and it's recording all that time. So we'll have to see how much that fluctuates my playtime.
It's interesting. I think we are playing a bit longer, though, because I want to say Sean and I were both maybe a little over 1 hour at the first gym leader in Kanto. So it looks like there's a lot more content here in Gen 2. I'm really liking that.
All right. Now going into our Pokemon party and levels. So you already heard the Pokemon. Starting off with Totodile, Admiral Tot. He's level 15. I got used him quite a lot in Bellsprout Tower once when he finally learned Water Gun. I was trying against a bunch of Ghastlies. And then the second command, Commodore S, my Sentret, was only level 10.
I had Cinder the Cyndaquil at level 11, and then Rocky the Onyx at level 13.
My two Pokemon are Hootie the Hoothoot at level 12 and Wagyu the Poliwag at level 15.
So Chris has the highest levels here. It's going to be a scary matchup.
You have a level 15 as well.
But you have a level 12 over my level 10, so we shall see.
And all my Pokemon are females.
Oh, I should also know, I completely forgot to mention this, that the Rocky the Onyx, as everyone knows, is a trade Pokemon. And by the time I got to level 11, it stopped listening to me. I considered training it up a little bit more, but once when that happened, I think both my Cyndaquil and Onyx were level 11 when I went to the gym. I'm like, all right, this is not worth training anymore.
Now we're going to be heading into our Johto Battles segment, where we're going to be facing off in a round-robin format of battles using our 2 Pokemon members that we used in the gym battles. It's me and Chris, destined rivals.
This is going to be so boring. I mean, my 2 Pokemon, they barely can do anything.
Okay, but see, what makes me mad is because I already knew Dustin was going to have a water Pokemon on his team, but Chris, why did you put Poliwag on your team? Because now your Poliwag beats both of my Pokemon. And so I was already expecting to kind of lose to Dustin, but now I'm probably going to lose to you.
Why do I have a Poliwag? Because you guys can't have one right now.
That's a smart choice right there.
Well, the battle has now started. So we have Dustin's Commodore S, which is Sentret, versus Chris's Wagyu, which is Poliwag. And it looks like Poliwag is getting the early advantage with a very strong water gun, where Sentret is doing tackles that are doing almost nothing to the Poliwag. And Sentret has gone down.
Oh, man.
Poliwag still is in the green, has about 70% of its health left. This is where Admiral Tot, Dustin's Totodile, fell asleep to hypnosis. The sleep strats have continued into Gen 2. Chris has now switched into his Hootie, the Hoothoot.
Oh no, it wakes up.
Dustin is using Rage to try and get some of its attack back because Chris has been growling with his Hoothoot.
Oh my, this is gonna be stressful.
Rage gets attack back?
Yes. So if I were you, I mean, I shouldn't give you advice, actually. I'm not giving you advice.
Yeah, you can't give me advice. That's cheating. Come on, Admiral Tot.
Come on, Hootie.
So Dustin has now figured out that Rage is very overpowered, and he's quickly getting his Totodile to obscene levels of Rage. Chris just lost his Hoothoot, so now it's Wagyu, the Poliwag, against Admiral Tot, the Totodile, where Chris is yet again trying to use his sleep hypnosis strategies to win this match. But will it be enough against Dustin's very strong Totodile?
I just beat Chris first time. Let's go.
You're lucky I didn't have my Chikorita around for this battle.
That was your own decision.
I would have definitely lost. I was expecting to lose this first round.
Welcome back, trainers. Now we just had our first battle conclude. We're going to go to Dustin and Chris to hear about their experiences during this battle. Dustin, how did this battle go for you?
You know, my Commodore S, my Centret, did not do a single thing in this battle. I tried my best to use Tackle and wasn't doing anything to Poliwag and just got taken out by Water Gun. And Chris, you have anything to say after that?
Hootie the Hoothoot, you need to improve a little more because you did not do any damage. That was not good.
He did not do much damage. I think it's a she, actually, Chris. Don't misgender.
That is true.
Well, Admiral Tot did come out for the win. He was very strong.
Yes, you're firsthand learning why Rage is a very strong move. Why it's the strongest he'll ever be in this generation.
And let's not forget, too, Dustin had the berry that was eaten, so good strat there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I was wondering why he gained health. I forgot he had the berry.
I guess we'll find out if my Pokemon have berries. I don't remember if they do or not.
So now we're moving into the second battle, Chris versus Sean. We have Sean Cinder, the Cyndaquil, versus Wagyu, the Poliwag, which just got taken out. So the second matchup was Onyx versus Poliwag, and 2 rounds, Sean is out.
I knew the early game was going to be tough for me. But like I said, I expected to at least win Chris because he would use his Chikorita, but no, you want to just throw in a Poliwag.
I couldn't use my Chikorita against Falkner. He's a flying type.
So then you use a water type? Why, Chris? Why?
You need a water type for the gym, and so I just happen to use...
Not this gym! It's a flying gym! Get a Geodude or a Rattata, I don't know.
Oh, I took a water type into the...
What's your starter, Dustin? That makes sense. Chris is just being difficult.
I didn't do it just because you had weaknesses to it, if that makes it better.
I won't believe anything you say, because I know you did.
We really need to get payback for last season's.
Whatever. All right, now it's me and you, I guess, Dustin.
Do we even need to do the...
No, we don't. It was 2 moves, and I was done. So, 2 water guns. You know, if you didn't get the critical hit, at least Cyndaquil could have done something to the first one, but no.
Well, I can't use Poliwag for every gym.
Now we have me versus Sean.
Which is probably going to be very similar to my last game.
Switch up my team again. Just gonna copy the strat that Chris just used.
Now that I think about it, I probably should have just started out with Hootie and see what could have transpired.
It's the only way I could have a shot.
Who's the next gym leader? Bugsy?
Yeah, he's pretty good too.
My Warga's not dealing as much as Chris's Poliwag.
It's because the first time Chris got a critical hit on my Cyndaquil, so you did exactly as much as I thought, so yep. At least I did some damage this time.
It took 3 turns, 1 turn more for me to beat Sean this time, but it's mainly just using Admiral Tot the Totodile and Water Gun to take down Sean's Cyndaquil and Onyx.
Sucks, but I kind of expected this when I picked Onyx as my other companion because I realized, wow, I have a horrible weakness to water types. Oh well, at least I only have one person who has a water type Pokemon to worry about. No, Chris just had to ruin that.
Can I do without my water type next gym? Oh, but we have 3 Pokemon, though.
I wasn't planning for water coverage, but it's the Pokemon I wanted to get. Hopefully no one else gets it.
Someone's getting Mareep.
You can't get it, so it's between me and Dustin.
I mean, it's just whoever wins the battles. So we'll see. As my Pokemon trainer, Oliver Olivine, I do have to make sure I have a very pristine pet-like team, so I'll do my best.
But Mareep falls in that, so it makes sense if you got Mareep. At the same time, it has more coverage on my team than it does yours. I need it more.
Very true for 2 water type trainers now. Well, we'll see how it goes. So that brings a close to our first Johto battle. Quick recap. I am now 2-0 right off the bat, which is crazy. Chris is 1-1, and Sean is on the bomb right now at 0-2. So very different results compared to the last season. I am having some fun, maybe because I'm on top of the leaderboard right now.
Well, you just get access to a lot more Pokemon in the early game here, too, because our first battle last time was Rattatas and Pidgeys and starters. It was really boring.
This time had a lot more water-type Pokemon than I was expecting, but it's fine.
One last closer before we end this episode. I did mention at the top of this episode that I was going to try and keep Sentret throughout the season. But, after that battle with Chris, I don't know how much longer I could have Sentret not doing any damage.
Furret's not too bad when it evolves. Like, if you could teach it Return, it gets Stab Return with a high friendship, it could be a pretty good ally.
I'll have to see. I'll try and keep that Commodore in his party. That brings us close to our first real episode of Season 2. So in our next episode, we will be talking about our experiences leading up to the next gym leader, the bug capturer himself, Bugsy. If you want to contact us, you can at our email, thetrainertriopodcast@gmail.com. And I always do post a couple of visuals of our trainers' parties and even our stats at the Trainer Trio.
Everyone, you should definitely give us a follow on Twitter or X. Dustin just mentioned how he does little visuals. It's really cool. You could see our trainer teams and just follow along with us as we go through this journey. So I highly recommend you guys following us there.
Until next time, we are the Trainer Trio signing off. Catch you in the Azalea Town, trainers.